For more on last night's debate, I want to bring in Jimmy Pethokoukis, economic policy analyst at the American Enterprise Institute. He is also a CNBC contributor. Also, Stephanie Kelly, senior political economist at Aberdeen Standard Investments. Welcome to you both. Stephanie, I will start with you. There is a debate about whether or not any kind of policies that were talked about last night will have any kind of bearing on the markets and the economy going down the line. Should investors be paying attention to the rhetoric out of President Trump and Vice President Joe Biden?
I think investors should probably think of last night in two ways. One is what didn't happen. And what didn't happen was an obvious underperformance by Biden. That's probably something that could have been, I guess, on our horizon in terms of potential to move those polls, because we know Biden's held that strong lead. Nothing kind of came about in that. And initial polling suggests that on balance, voters think that Biden, quote unquote, won last night. I'm not sure that anyone really thinks there was a true winner, given just how aggressive the debate was. For investors, though, I think the most impactful takeaway from last night is just a reinforcement that President Trump won't commit to a peaceful transition of power. And what that means is that, as we've talked about before, it's not election day, it's election weeks. It's going to take a while to count the votes. And in that time, expect a lot of noise and potentially, a refusal from the president and an attempt to try and, move forward with contesting any results, particularly in states where it's tight. I think that's what's been reinforced for investors, is that expect a really uncertain election period.
Jimmy Pethokoukis, I wonder about whether or not the U.S. economy is being hamstrung by what's happening with this debate, the election coming up, the negotiations out of Congress for a new coronavirus aid package. What exactly is the economy capable of doing if we can get past many of these issues?
Well, I think that's a good point. Certainly in a sane world, one of the big topics last night would have been, do we need another fiscal stimulus package? And is that going to happen? And asking the candidates not only what they think, but then do we need another one after that? And then what is your exact plan in 2021? I have a pretty idea what the Biden 2021 plan is. The president has not been clear about what his second term agenda. All those things would have been fantastic. And I'm pretty sure the best headline that the president could have gotten was that if you looked at Facebook trending or Twitter trending, it would have been all about his economic plans for 2021. That certainly isn't what happened. And again, if you listen, certainly most Wall Street firms, their more bullish forecasts for the rest of the year all depended on there being more stimulus. Maybe that still happens. It sort of seems unlikely. And you certainly got no clarity from that debate, either about that or what exactly the president thinks we need to do for 2021.
Eamon, I want to turn to you here for a moment, if I could. The notion right now, we've seen some recent polling data that suggests that the vast majority of Americans have already made up their mind with regard to who they're going to vote for. Now, with that in mind, with these presidential debates looming, another one coming up, should we expect to see any kind of real movement? What can these candidates say that's going to change anybody's mind at this stage?
Well, look, it's going to be very tight, Dom. And you look at these battleground states, and our polling has shown consistently that Joe Biden has a lead in all of the battleground states. For the most part, each week we've issued one of our polls. That's the result that's come back. The president has been ahead one or two times in some of the battleground states. But for the most part, it's a consistent lead by Joe Biden of a couple of points in each of these battleground states. So the number of voters that you're trying to persuade here is vanishingly small in the United States. You're looking at a couple of key counties inside these battleground states where there might still be some persuadable voters to try to reach. But otherwise, this is all about amping up your turnout for your side. That's what I talked about, the tribalism of American politics. This wasn't a debate about issues or policy as Jimmy P wanted it to be. This was a debate about alpha male posturing and dominance behavior. And both sides trying to show their base that they're the guy who's going to win this thing, get fired up, get to the polls. Joe Biden had a couple of effective moments where he turned right to the camera and spoke directly to voters and said, I need you to get out there and vote. This was a mobilization debate, not a policy debate.
All right, Jimmy, I'll turn to you because Eamon brought you into this. What's the most important thing each candidate can say with regard to the economy and what they can do for it?
Well, listen, the week before the election, there's going to be a GDP report out. It's going to be a massive number. It has to be. And if I were the president, I would be talking about the economy. So when that GDP report comes out, it's going to sync with his economic message that he built the greatest economy in the world before, and he's doing it again. I think that might have some impact at the margin. As far as Joe Biden goes, I love policy. Eamon's right. That's my bias. I would make sure that voters knew, given that the economy is Trump still probably his strongest polling area. If I were Joe Biden, I would want voters, when they go in that voting booth or they mail those ballots, they have a pretty good idea what Joe Biden wants to do to help the economy in 2021 and how Joe Biden's going to get the unemployment rate back down to 3.5%.
All right, Stephanie Kelly, you got the first word. I'm going to give you the last one as well. As you take a look at what's going to happen in the coming weeks, is there any kind of real market reaction that could happen, given the fact that we may not know about an election outcome for possibly weeks after this particular date on November 3rd?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there could be quite a lot of market angst about what exactly is going to happen, particularly in the run-up to Election Day. If polls were to tighten significantly, I think that angst will be larger, because the tighter the elections, the more the uncertainty, the more potential for contested state results, and the more potential that you get this drawn-out debate, particularly led by the president, around whether the election itself can be considered valid, and indeed kind of trying to potentially look at different states and find ways to subvert or at least contest the existing results. And that's certainly something markets are worried about. And I expect that you'll continue to see markets become more concerned as we move forward, as we get closer, particularly if polls begin to tighten more.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.